Yeah, g'day again. I just wanted to have a brief, slight chat about all the Saturn V rockets and how this continuous meme just keeps coming up. This whole thing, we've lost the technology, and it's just so friggin' annoying hearing this crap because they've completely misinterpreted what this guy said, and they have completely misunderstood the fact that we've moved on from the whole moon thing of the 1960s. We're supposed to be going back to the moon, in the next couple of years, and they've already sent Artemis 1 up there to just do a loop to be able to test all the new technology to be able to go and do this sort of stuff. And so this theory that we've just lost the technology is ridiculous. But looking at what this guy particularly said, I'll play it right now, and we can talk about what he actually says.
I'd go to the moon in a nanosecond.
Great. You can go to the moon in a nanosecond. So there's a lot of people who are keen, which is good. There's motivation, right? Next line.
The problem is we don't have the technology to do that anymore.
We don't have the technology to do that anymore. Now we have the technology, but the technology got destroyed. Why did it get destroyed? I'll go on to that.
Used to, but we destroyed that technology.
As I just said, he destroyed that technology. Why did he destroy that technology?
And it's a painful process to build it back again.
It's a painful process to build it back again. It's a painful process, right? So it costs millions and millions and millions of dollars to go out there and rebuild all this sort of stuff. And, well, they destroyed it, right? Why did they destroy it? Let's have a bit of a think, because obviously some people just don't have any ability to be able to understand why they destroyed it, right? So they've got all these rockets. They've got the Apollo 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17. And it looks as though they used some of the Saturn V design to send up Skylab back in the, I can't remember if it was in the 80s or 90s or something like that. But Skylab was obviously one of the first space stations that actually existed up there before that came crashing down in Australia. So Skylab was it was a very, very, very tiny space station. And that only stayed up for a certain amount of time. And as I said, it crashed somewhere in Western Australia. There's pieces that smashed all over the place, and people were driving around picking up the pieces of Skylab. So let's move on from that. What do we got? So one thing I'll go on to just before we talk about why everything was destroyed is this notion that the technology was lost and we just can't go ahead and do it again. The reason why the space program in the 60s was doing Gemini and Apollo was because it was a Cold War. There was this never-ending fear against Russia taking hold of the skies. They sent up Sputnik, and they didn't want to obviously go and get defeated. I'm guessing some people will probably listen to that and thinking, "Oh man, he's indoctrinated by school and stuff like that." But I mean, honestly, just ask yourself: doesn't that sound logical? That if Russia went and set Sputnik up, that they would have domination of the skies. You could drop nukes, because nukes was a problem back in the 40s. You could fly a nuke up and you could land in your country. That fear has been around since the 40s, since World War II, right? And so you've got to dominate the sky. You've got to have some presence. And so Gemini and Apollo was a knee-jerk reaction to go out there and have some form of aerial dominance, or at least pushing the technologies to that next level. Now, where did it go? Why did it stop? People lost interest. They were busy looking at the Vietnam War and all that sort of stuff, right? Even the Korean War, I think, happened a little bit later than that as well. People were protesting about free love. They wanted to get out of wars. They wanted to smoke pot and listen to bloody, you know, Jimi Hendrix and stuff like that. They lost interest in the Apollo missions, right? And so most of the money started to get into reusability because the Apollo mission, basically everything was getting constantly destroyed. Very expensive, nothing was ever rebuilt again. So along comes the space shuttle. The space shuttle can be sent up and it can come down and land. Isn't that good for reusability? Why would you want to come down in a little tiny pod when you can come down in a full-size plane and you can actually put a full load of cargo in the actual back hatch of the space shuttle? So it's reusable, right? So you move on from the Apollo, which is basically a completely disposable system, to a space shuttle, which is at least 50% retrievable. At least 50% of the product comes back to Earth intact, and then you can kind of give it a clean, give it a refill, fix up some objects, and then send it back out to space again, right? So reusability, this is what SpaceX was always trying to solve, reusability, right? And so obviously the space shuttle went up there, and as you can see to the right, we've got the International Space Station. They would have put a whole bunch of the capsules from the International Space Station in the back of the space shuttle and sent it up there. It flies back down, it does it again. They're saving cost by doing all this sort of stuff. And that's how the ISS basically came to be. They sent the space shuttle up and it dumped a whole bunch of stuff and they screwed it all together and tightened the bolts, put solar panels on, and hey Bob, you've got a space station flying around in space. So why would you continue the Apollo program when you wanted to go out there and send an aeroplane which has a cargo hatch on the back so that you can put a space station in space? Why bother with Saturn V? Why bother with Apollo? It makes no sense, right? So move on, get better, do new things, expand your horizons. Now, I wanted to show this because I found this a while ago. Some dude was taking a whole bunch of photos, and someone asked him to pick out where the lander sites was, and so he put a whole bunch of red circles on it. So I just thought that was kind of cool. I thought I'd throw that in the mix. Now this is this is really funny. I love looking at this sort of stuff. I mean, it makes sense. It makes sense that this would be the orbit path because basically you orbit the moon at the time when it's facing the sun, and that way the sunny side face of the moon faces the Earth, which means that you'll be able to have direct communication through satellites and through what do you call it, transmitters and stuff like that. But the funny thing about it is the fact that it looks like a giant dick with dick and balls, and most people seem to think that that's some sort of deliberate thing to throw off a scent or something like that. Personally, it's a flight path, and I think it's hilarious. It looks like a dick and balls, but bloody oath. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a look at an actual Saturn V plan. So I'm just going to cut to that, and I'm going to put in paint.